The Tibetan nun that I'm talking about right now, when we saw her papers, what we saw is the confirmed date of her birth was 1885, all right? And the year that I was with her was the year 2005. We went back again in 2008. My first contact with her was in 2005. 1885 to 2005, that means I was looking into the eyes of a woman who's 120 years old. She did not look like 120 years old. She lived in a single room. She walked to the river every morning, down a hillside to bring up the water. She grew a lot of her own food in the vessels and the vases that were available to her. Basil, tomatoes, herbs that she would eat every day in a very, very minimal diet. She was good, healthy, strong, and vital. And that told me that something is happening with her that maybe is happening with other people. Well, interestingly, I asked her what was her secret, and she looked at me through the translator and she said one word: compassion. She said, that's what we learn in these monasteries. That is the essence of our Buddhist teachings. It's all about compassion. We'll see in a moment why compassion would have an effect of longevity. Before we do that, I want to show you a couple other cases because I want you to see this isn't an anomaly. It wasn't long after I met this Tibetan woman that the national media ran a story about a woman in the Palestinian territories. And you're seeing her face on the screen right now because she made national news. This was on the Associated Press. This woman, when you look at her, ask yourself how old do you think she is? Because here's her story. She went shopping one day. She hadn't been out for a while. She had to go through a military checkpoint that she didn't have to go through before, didn't exist before. They looked at her papers, they said, your papers are expired. You have to go to the authorities and get some new papers. And that's when she made headlines, because when they checked back through her records, they found that her date of birth was 1888. And the woman you're looking at, in the year 2008, she is 120 years old. Now, I'm not saying that she looks like she's in her 20s, but I think she looks really good for 120 years old. Her eyes are bright, her skin color is good, her teeth are good, she still has her hair. And I want to know, what is her secret? And she said the secret for her was the love that she had for her family, her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, her great-great-grandchildren. She said, they need me every day. What would they do without me? She said, I fix their meals, I help them with their schoolwork, I help them everything they're doing in their lives. I work in the garden so that I can prepare the food for them. She feels needed, and she loves her family, and she feels loved. That is a heart-based experience. All right? So that's two. And these are women, and I wanted to find an example that was of a male. And it was only through the research I was able to find what I'm about to share with you. And I'm sharing it with you. And I believe this is factual because it was documented by the military, and it was also documented in an article in Time magazine early in the 20th century. The man that you're looking at right now has a very interesting history. His name is Li Qingyuan. The image that you're seeing is a photograph that was taken of him in 1927 by the Chinese military. He was at the residence having a meal with an army general at the time. He was born in Sichuan, China. He spent the early part of his life as an herbalist. He was a high-altitude herbalist, and he was also a martial artist. So he lived in high elevation, thin air, a minimal diet of very specific kinds of herbs, and he learned about the energy of the human body through martial arts. He enlisted in the Chinese military at a relatively late age. He was 72 years old when he enlisted as a cartographer, and he is documented as enlisting in the Chinese military in the year 1749. Now, the Chinese keep meticulous records, and that's why I trust these records. 1749, he left the military, and he went back to his home in the mountains after he served as a cartographer at the age of 97, and 3 years later, the military records sent him a congratulations on his 100th birthday. That was the year 1777. They sent him another congratulations on his 150th birthday And the records show this very clearly. In the year 1827, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, they sent him another congratulations for his 200th birthday in the year 1877. He died May 6th, 1933. His birth date, now the two different dates, he said that his birth date was later. He said he was only born in 1736. The military records, however, show that he was born in 1677. So either one of these is showing a man of tremendously advanced age. His age at death, was either 197 or 256. And this borders on what are called biblical ages. When he died, he was 7 feet tall. He had accomplished 14 marriages over 11 generations, and by some estimates had as many as 180 children that were attributed to his marriages. Time magazine wrote an article on him, on Lee, and actually did an obituary May 15th, 1933. They acknowledged the validity of his longevity. And in this article, they asked, what was the secret to his long life? Before he had died, he had shared that secret. The secret, he said, was all about the heart. The secret was to keep a quiet heart. Now, this is not typical. I don't think it's the oldest, because the time that I have spent in Tibet, the monks and the nuns have told me that there are yogis that are much older. But I'm not sharing those with you here, and here's the reason why. I cannot document it. I cannot say to you factually, as a scientist, those yogis are actually 400 and 500 years old. And the truth is that the lives that I am told they live don't sound like very exciting lives. They live lives of ascetics, very little clothing. They don't move very much. They spend a lot of time in meditation, and their bodies they're strong and they're healthy, but they're not as engaged in everyday life. If I'm going to live 200, 300, 400 years old, I'd like to be very engaged in everyday life.